Hey, welcome back to our channel, Sleepless Story. Tonight, we're stepping away from the noise of the modern world and into the quiet, ordinary routines of the 19th century. There will be no great battles, no famous heroes, and no dramatic twists. Only the slow, peaceful rhythm of everyday life as it was lived nearly 200 years ago. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let the gentle pace of history help your mind relax as you slowly drift toward a restful sleep. A quiet morning in the 19th century. Tonight, you leave behind the noise of the modern world and quietly step into an ordinary morning of the 19th century. There are no flashing lights, no smartphones, no traffic, and no endless stream of information demanding your attention. Instead, there is only the gentle rhythm of a world that moves slowly, patiently, and almost without hurry. As you settle into this peaceful journey, imagine yourself waking in a modest home sometime around the middle of the 19th century, where life follows the rising and setting of the sun, rather than the ticking of precise clocks. The first thing you notice is the silence. It is not complete silence, but a soft collection of natural sounds that seem to belong together. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster announces the beginning of another ordinary day. A few birds greet the morning from nearby trees. The wooden beams of the house quietly creak as the cool air shifts during the early hours. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing asks you to move quickly. The day unfolds at its own comfortable pace. You slowly open your eyes inside a simple bedroom. The walls are plain, perhaps whitewashed, or covered with rough plaster. There are no electric lamps hanging from the ceiling, because electricity has not yet become part of everyday life for most families. During the night, the room was lit only by candles or an oil lamp, both carefully used because every bit of fuel is valuable. Now the pale sunlight gently slips through the small window, becoming the only light you need. Your bed is sturdy rather than soft. Depending on where you live and how wealthy your family is, the mattress may be stuffed with straw, wool, horsehair, or feathers. It is comfortable enough after years of use, though very different from the thick mattresses many people enjoy today. Heavy blankets have protected you from the cool night air, and you fold them neatly before beginning the day, because keeping things in good order is simply part of daily life. There is no alarm clock buzzing beside your bed. Most people wake naturally with daylight, or because their bodies have grown accustomed to the same routine repeated every morning. In many homes, time is measured less by the exact minute and more by the position of the sun or the familiar sequence of daily tasks. Morning arrives. Breakfast follows. Work begins. Evening comes. And finally, darkness signals that it is time to rest once again. You dress carefully in clothes that have likely been worn many times before. Clothing in the 19th century is valuable, and replacing it is expensive. Small tears are mended with patient hands. Missing buttons are sewn back into place instead of being ignored. A jacket might remain in use for years, and a child's clothes are often passed down to younger brothers or sisters. Every piece of fabric represents many hours of spinning, weaving, sewing, and careful maintenance. As you step into the main room of the house, you notice that someone has already begun preparing the morning fire. Starting a fire is an everyday skill rather than an occasional task. Dry wood has been gathered long before winter arrives, carefully stacked where it can remain dry. A few glowing embers from the previous evening may still survive beneath the ashes, making the morning's work a little easier. Slowly, fresh pieces of wood catch the flame, filling the room with gentle warmth and the familiar scent of burning oak or pine. Breakfast is simple, filling, and predictable. Fresh bread rests on the wooden table, beside a small amount of butter, cheese, or homemade jam, if the household is fortunate enough to have them. A bowl of porridge may be served, providing enough energy for many hours of physical work. Families who keep chickens might enjoy fresh eggs, while others make do with whatever food is available from the previous day's baking. Every meal reflects the changing seasons, local harvests, and the careful habit of wasting almost nothing. Conversation around the table is calm and practical. No one scrolls through headlines or checks messages. Instead, family members quietly discuss the work that needs to be done before sunset. Someone must fetch water from the village pump or nearby well. Another person plans to repair a fence damaged by recent weather. Bread must be baked again before supplies run low. Animals need feeding. Gardens require attention. Every task is ordinary, yet together they shape the rhythm of everyday existence. Before long, you step outside into the fresh morning air. The streets are peaceful, with only a handful of people already beginning their routines. A farmer guides a horse, pulling a small wagon loaded with vegetables. A shopkeeper sweeps yesterday's dust from the entrance of a modest store. Thin streams of smoke rise gently from chimneys across the village, each one quietly announcing that another household has started its day. There is no constant roar of engines, only the occasional sound of wagon wheels rolling across uneven roads, distant voices carried by the breeze, and the steady footsteps of neighbors who have known one another for years. Standing there for a moment, you begin to understand something that many people today rarely experience. Life here is not built around speed. It is built around repetition, patience, and familiar routines. Most mornings look almost exactly like the one before, and tomorrow will likely resemble today. In that gentle sameness, there is a quiet sense of stability. The ordinary people of the 19th century may never imagine that future generations will look back upon their simple lives with curiosity. For them, this is simply another peaceful morning, and the day has only just begun. The first chores of the morning. The morning has now settled gently over the town, and with breakfast finished, the quiet rhythm of daily life begins to unfold. There is no loud signal announcing the start of work, no factory whistle echoing through the streets for most people, and certainly no calendar notification reminding anyone of the day's responsibilities. Instead, every member of the household simply knows what must be done. The routine has been repeated so many times that it has become almost as natural as breathing. You leave the warmth of the house carrying a wooden bucket. One of the first tasks of the day is collecting fresh water. Unlike the modern world, where clean water appears with the turn of a tap, every bucket must be carried by hand. If your family is fortunate, there is a well nearby. If not, the journey may take several minutes along a quiet dirt road. It is a task performed every single day, regardless of the weather. The air is still cool, and the grass glistens with tiny drops of morning dew. As you walk, your boots make a soft crunch against the gravel path. A gentle breeze moves through the trees, carrying the scent of damp earth, wood smoke, and freshly cut hay from nearby fields. The entire village seems wrapped in a peaceful stillness that only slowly gives way to activity. Other neighbors are already outside, quietly attending to their own morning routines. A woman carefully hangs freshly washed clothes on a line, stretched between two wooden posts. A young boy carries firewood toward his family's kitchen. An elderly man slowly opens the doors of a small stable before greeting his horse with a gentle pat. No one appears rushed. There is work to be done, but there is also an understanding that every task takes the time it takes. When you reach the village well, several people are already waiting their turn. The conversations are calm and polite. There is no gossip shouted across the square, and no urgent discussion of breaking news. Instead, neighbors exchange simple greetings, speak about the weather, ask after each other's families, or comment on the condition of the crops. These brief conversations help keep the community closely connected, as everyone depends on one another in ways that may seem unfamiliar today. Drawing water requires patience. A bucket is lowered slowly into the darkness below until a soft splash tells you it has reached the water. Then comes the steady work of turning the handle or pulling the heavy rope back toward the surface. The bucket grows heavier with every inch, and lifting it demands quiet determination rather than great strength. Once filled, every drop is valuable. Water will be used for drinking, cooking, washing, cleaning, and caring for animals throughout the day. The journey home feels slightly slower now that the bucket is full. You naturally take careful steps, trying not to spill the precious water onto the road. Small tasks like this occupy a surprising amount of time, yet nobody thinks of them as inconvenient. They are simply part of life, repeated day after day, season after season, year after year. Back at the house, new chores are already waiting. The fire needs another piece of wood. The chickens eagerly wander around the yard, expecting their morning feed. If the family owns a cow, it must be milked before the day grows warmer. The steady sound of milk striking the metal pail creates a quiet rhythm that has echoed across farms for generations. Nearby, a loyal farm dog watches patiently, occasionally wagging its tail, but otherwise remaining perfectly content with the peaceful morning. Inside the home, someone begins sweeping the wooden floors with a simple broom made from bundled twigs or straw. Dust gathers quickly. In houses where doors are often left open and roads remain unpaved, furniture is wiped clean. Cooking utensils are arranged neatly, and yesterday's ashes are carefully removed from the fireplace before the next meal is prepared. Every chore is small on its own, yet together they create a home that feels orderly and welcoming. As the morning sun slowly climbs higher into the sky, the village becomes a little busier. Wagons begin rolling toward the marketplace. Farmers prepare to spend long hours in nearby fields. Craftsmen unlock their workshops, where they will shape wood, leather, iron, or cloth using skills passed down through generations. Children finish their simpler chores before beginning lessons at home or helping their parents with whatever work the family depends upon. Nothing about this morning seems extraordinary, and that is precisely what makes it so fascinating. The people living here are not trying to create history. They are simply living ordinary lives, one quiet task at a time, never imagining that centuries later someone might gently close their eyes and listen to the peaceful story of another completely ordinary day. A slow walk to the village market. With the morning chores now complete, the village gradually settles into the next familiar part of the day. The sun has climbed a little higher, warming the rooftops and drying the last traces of dew from the grass. There is still no sense of urgency. Life in the 19th century rarely moves quickly, and today is no exception. Every hour has its purpose, but almost nothing is expected to happen in a hurry. You pick up a woven basket and begin walking toward the village market. It is not a grand marketplace filled with hundreds of merchants or colorful displays. Instead, it is a modest gathering of local people who have come to exchange the products of their own hard work. The market is less about excitement and more about necessity. It is simply another quiet part of everyday life. The road beneath your feet is uneven, made mostly of packed earth with scattered stones. After several days of rain, it can become muddy and difficult to walk across. During dry weather, every passing wagon lifts a small cloud of dust into the air. Your pace remains steady, matching the rhythm of the people around you. There is little reason to rush because nearly everyone is heading to the same place, following the same routine they have known for years. Along the way, you pass cottages built from stone, brick, or timber, depending on the region. Most homes are modest in size. Their gardens provide vegetables, herbs, and sometimes fruit, helping families reduce the need to purchase expensive food. Chickens wander freely through small yards, scratching the ground in search of insects. A sleepy cat stretches lazily on a windowsill, completely unconcerned with the slow movement of the morning. As you continue walking, the sounds of the market slowly become clearer. They are gentle sounds rather than overwhelming ones. You hear the quiet murmur of conversations, the soft clatter of wooden wagon wheels, the occasional whinny of a horse, and the steady footsteps of people arriving from nearby farms. Compared with the busy markets of the modern world, everything feels remarkably peaceful. When you finally arrive, the marketplace is already beginning to fill. Farmers carefully arrange baskets of potatoes, carrots, onions, cabbage, and turnips on simple wooden tables. Others display fresh eggs, butter, cheese, and loaves of dark bread baked only hours before sunrise. The selection changes with the seasons because there are no refrigerated trucks bringing food from distant countries. People eat what the local land provides, and they patiently wait for each harvest to arrive. Not far away, a blacksmith pauses for a moment before returning to his forge. His strong hands have spent years shaping iron into horseshoes, tools, hinges, and countless everyday objects. Every swing of his hammer reflects experience gained through long practice. Nearby, a carpenter examines carefully cut pieces of timber that will soon become furniture, doors, or sturdy farm equipment. These craftsmen are respected, members of the community, because their skills are essential to daily life. Money is certainly used, but it is not always the only way to trade. In smaller villages, bartering remains common. A farmer may exchange fresh vegetables for a repaired tool. A basket of eggs might be traded for cloth or candles. These simple exchanges strengthen relationships between neighbors while ensuring that everyone's basic needs are met. Children move quietly through the marketplace beside their parents. Some help carry baskets that seem almost too heavy for their small arms. Others watch with curious eyes as adults discuss prices or inspect the quality of goods. There are no toys to distract them and no electronic devices to hold their attention. Instead, they learn by observing the ordinary work of everyday life. Even the clothing people wear tells a quiet story. Most garments are practical rather than fashionable. Colors are often muted because bright dyes can be expensive. Aprons protect dresses from dirt. Sturdy boots endure long walks across rough roads, and wide-brimmed hats shield workers from the summer sun. Every piece of clothing has been chosen for usefulness before appearance. As you slowly make your way through the market, you notice that nobody seems eager to leave. The marketplace serves another purpose beyond buying and selling. It is one of the few places where neighbors regularly meet, exchange news, offer small pieces of advice, and simply enjoy a few moments of conversation. In a world without telephones or newspapers arriving every hour, these quiet conversations help keep the community connected. Before long, your basket is a little heavier, filled with the simple necessities that will support another ordinary day. With one final glance across the peaceful square, you begin the gentle walk back home. The village market slowly fades behind you, but the calm rhythm of 19th century life continues, carrying you toward the quiet work that still awaits before the afternoon begins. Returning home and preparing the midday meal. With your basket now a little heavier than before, you leave the village market behind and begin the slow journey home. The path is the very same one you walked earlier this morning, yet it feels slightly different now. The sun has climbed higher into the sky, and its gentle warmth has replaced the cool freshness of dawn. The village is awake. Though it remains wonderfully calm by modern standards, there is movement everywhere, but almost none of it feels hurried. The woven basket rests comfortably against your arm. Inside are the simple necessities that will help carry the household through another ordinary day. A fresh loaf of bread, a small piece of cheese, a handful of onions, perhaps a little butter wrapped carefully in cloth, and a few vegetables that will eventually find their way into a hearty soup or stew. Every item has been chosen with care because unnecessary spending is something most families simply cannot afford. As you continue walking, you pass familiar faces once again. The blacksmith's hammer rings steadily through the air, each strike measured and practiced. The village tailor sits beside a bright window, carefully repairing a worn jacket instead of making a new one. Outside another cottage, an elderly woman patiently peels apples while sitting on a wooden bench. She works without rushing, her hands moving almost automatically after decades of repeating the same simple task. Children's laughter drifts through the air as they play beside the road. But even their games are simple. A wooden hoop rolls across the dirt path. A handmade cloth ball is tossed from one child to another. Some younger children simply chase one another around a large oak tree, inventing games that require nothing more than imagination. Expensive toys are rare, yet boredom seems surprisingly uncommon. When you finally reach home, the front door opens with a familiar creak. Inside, the house feels pleasantly cool despite the growing warmth outside. Thick stone walls or heavy timber help keep the indoor temperature comfortable during the summer months. The smell of burning firewood still lingers gently in the air, mixed with the comforting scent of fresh bread and dried herbs hanging from wooden beams above. There is little time for resting because the next household routine is already waiting. Preparing the midday meal begins long before anyone sits down to eat. Every ingredient requires attention. Vegetables must be washed, peeled, and chopped by hand. Bread is sliced carefully so that none is wasted. If meat is available, it is used sparingly, often stretched across several meals rather than eaten all at once. For many families, meat is considered an occasional luxury rather than an everyday expectation. The large iron pot is placed above the fireplace once again. A slow stew begins to simmer, filling the room with a rich, comforting aroma. Unlike modern kitchens with gas or electric stoves, controlling the heat requires patience. Someone must carefully add or remove pieces of firewood to keep the cooking temperature steady. Every meal demands both time and attention. While the food cooks, the rest of the household continues working. One person kneads dough for tomorrow's bread, pressing it firmly with steady hands before leaving it to rise beneath a clean cloth. Another mends a pair of wool socks that have begun to wear thin. After many miles of walking, near the window, someone carefully spins wool into yarn using a spinning wheel whose gentle hum has become one of the most familiar sounds inside the home. Cleaning never truly ends. Wooden tables are wiped down, cooking pots are scrubbed with sand or coarse cloth, and the floor is swept once again to remove the dust carried in on boots. These chores may seem repetitive, yet they are essential. Without modern cleaning products or running water, maintaining a healthy home depends almost entirely upon steady daily effort. Outside, the family garden quietly continues its work beneath the midday sun. Rows of cabbage, carrots, beans, onions, and herbs grow steadily, providing much of the household's food throughout the year. Every plant is valuable. Weeds are removed by hand, and rain is welcomed with genuine gratitude, because dry seasons can quickly threaten an entire harvest. Gardening is not considered a relaxing hobby. It is a necessary part of survival. Nearby, a few chickens wander freely through the yard, occasionally stopping to peck at seeds or insects hidden beneath the soil. Their quiet clucking blends naturally with the distant sound of birds singing from nearby trees. A patient old dog stretches lazily beneath the shade of a wagon, opening one eye every now and then before drifting back into another peaceful nap. As the stew continues bubbling softly over the fire and the familiar rhythm of household work carries on around you, it becomes clear that much of 19th century life is built upon ordinary routines that rarely change. These simple tasks may never appear in history books, yet they quietly shaped the lives of millions of people. Day after day, season after season, families found comfort in repetition, knowing that another peaceful afternoon was slowly approaching, just as it always had. The gentle rhythm of midday work. By the time the midday meal has been finished, the house grows quiet for a few peaceful moments. The bowls and wooden spoons have been cleared from the table. The last piece of bread has been carefully wrapped in cloth to keep it fresh, and the fire beneath the cooking pot has been allowed to burn a little lower. No food is thrown away. Every crumb has value, and every leftover will likely become part of another meal before the day is over. There is no long afternoon break. For most families in the 19th century, work continues almost as naturally as breathing. Life depends upon steady effort, and every season brings its own endless list of responsibilities. Yet despite the amount of work, there is very little panic. People simply move from one task to the next with quiet patience, following routines that have been passed down through generations. You step outside once again, where the afternoon sun shines warmly across the village. The sky is wide and clear, broken only by slow-moving clouds drifting overhead. A gentle breeze rustles through the leaves of old oak and elm trees, carrying with it the comforting smells of fresh hay, warm earth, and wood smoke rising from distant chimneys. Many of the villagers are now working in their gardens. These small plots of land may not seem impressive, but they provide an important part of the family's food supply. Rows of cabbage stand beside onions, beans climb wooden poles, and carrots remain hidden beneath the soil, quietly growing until harvest. Every plant receives careful attention because a successful garden can make the difference between comfort and hardship during the colder months. You kneel beside the vegetable beds and begin pulling weeds by hand. It is slow, repetitive work that requires little conversation. The soil feels soft beneath your fingers, still holding a little moisture from the morning dew. Occasionally, a bird lands nearby, searching for insects disturbed by your careful movements. There is something surprisingly peaceful about this simple task. The world feels neither fast nor demanding. It simply asks for patience. Not far away, another family is hanging herbs to dry beneath the shade of a wooden porch. Bundles of rosemary, thyme, mint, and sage sway gently in the afternoon air. These herbs will later flavor soups, preserve food, or even be used as simple remedies for common illnesses. In an age before modern pharmacies, knowledge of plants is an important part of everyday life, often passed from parents to children through quiet observation rather than written instruction. Across the road, a farmer slowly repairs a section of wooden fencing that had begun to lean after last winter's storms. One board at a time, he measures, cuts, and fits each piece into place. His tools are simple but dependable: a well-made hammer, a sturdy saw, and a sharp chisel are cared for with great attention because replacing them is expensive. Every tool is cleaned after use and stored carefully, ready for tomorrow's work. Nearby, the steady rhythm of a spinning wheel drifts from an open window. Inside the cottage, wool is being turned into yarn with patient hands. The wheel spins at an even pace, producing a gentle humming sound that blends almost perfectly with the quiet afternoon. Hours of spinning may eventually become enough thread for warm clothing, blankets, or stockings. It is slow work, but no one expects it to be quick. As you continue walking through the village, you notice how little noise surrounds you. There are no engines roaring through the streets, no loud music echoing from distant buildings, and no constant hum of machinery. Instead, the sounds of the afternoon are wonderfully ordinary. A horse quietly pulls a wagon along the dirt road. Birds sing from nearby hedges. A blacksmith's hammer strikes iron in slow, steady intervals. Somewhere in the distance, church bells gently mark the passing of another hour. Time itself seems to move differently here. Without digital clocks constantly demanding attention, the afternoon unfolds almost unnoticed. People judge the passing hours by the position of the sun, the lengthening shadows, or the simple feeling that another task has been completed. There is no need to count every minute because tomorrow will bring much the same routine. As the sunlight begins its slow journey toward the western horizon, the pace of work softens ever so slightly. There are still chores to finish before evening arrives, but nobody appears anxious. The village continues its quiet rhythm, just as it has for countless ordinary afternoons before. In this peaceful corner of the 19th century, life is measured not by excitement or constant change, but by the gentle repetition of simple work, familiar faces, and another calm day slowly unfolding toward evening. Inside the village workshop, as the afternoon quietly continues, your attention is drawn away from the gardens and toward the small workshops scattered throughout the village. These humble buildings may not look remarkable from the outside, yet they are among the busiest places in the community. Nearly every object used in daily life begins here, shaped by patient hands rather than large machines. In the 19th century, craftsmanship is not simply a profession, it is an essential part of everyday survival. You slowly approach the village carpenter's workshop. Even before reaching the doorway, you notice the pleasant scent of freshly cut wood drifting into the warm afternoon air. Inside, sunlight pours through tall windows, illuminating countless tiny particles of sawdust floating gently like golden dust. The room is filled with wooden benches, hand tools, and stacks of carefully seasoned timber waiting to become something useful. The carpenter does not hurry. Every movement has been practiced thousands of times before. He carefully measures a length of oak, marks a straight line with a pencil, and guides a handsaw through the wood with slow, even strokes. There are no electric saws filling the room with deafening noise. Instead, each cut produces only the quiet rhythm of steel moving steadily through timber. Nearby rests a collection of simple but valuable tools. Plain, smooth, rough surfaces until they feel soft beneath the hand. Chisels carve neat joints that fit together with remarkable precision. Wooden mallets strike firmly but gently, shaping each piece without damaging it. Every tool has its own place on the wall, carefully cleaned and sharpened after every day's work. Replacing them would be costly, so they are treated with great respect. The carpenter is building a sturdy dining table for a neighboring family. It is not decorated with elaborate carvings or expensive ornaments. Its beauty lies in its usefulness. If properly cared for, this table may remain in the family for decades, perhaps even passing from parents to children. Furniture in the 19th century is built to last, not to be replaced every few years. Leaving the carpenter behind, you continue toward another workshop where the village cobbler spends long hours repairing worn shoes and boots. The room smells faintly of leather, beeswax, and polished wood. Shelves are lined with boots of every size, many waiting for new soles rather than replacement. Shoes are valuable possessions, and throwing them away after a small tear would seem remarkably wasteful. The cobbler sits quietly beneath the window, where natural light makes his careful work easier. With a thick needle and strong wax thread, he patiently stitches cracked leather back together. Every stitch is placed with precision, ensuring the repair will survive many more miles of walking along dusty roads and muddy paths. Customers are grateful for these repairs because a good pair of boots may serve someone faithfully for many years. Further along the street, the rhythmic sound of metal striking metal leads you toward the blacksmith's forge. The air here feels noticeably warmer. A bright fire burns inside the stone hearth, heating iron until it glows a deep orange. The blacksmith removes the hot metal with heavy tongs and places it upon the anvil. Then comes the familiar rhythm that echoes through the village almost every day. Clang. A brief pause. Clang. Another measured pause. Each strike shapes the iron a little more, transforming it into a horseshoe, a farming tool, or perhaps a sturdy hinge for a new door. There is nothing hurried about the process. Skill matters far more than speed, and years of experience guide every movement of the blacksmith's powerful arms. Although these workshops are busy, they remain surprisingly peaceful. Conversation is limited. Craftsmen often work in comfortable silence, interrupted only by occasional greetings from neighbors or simple discussions about an order that needs completing before the week's end. Apprentices watch closely, learning each technique through observation and repeated practice, rather than formal classrooms. As you stroll back through the village, it becomes clear that nearly everything around you has been created by someone living nearby. The table inside your home, the chair beside the fireplace, the boots protecting your feet, the wagon carrying vegetables to the market, and even the iron nails holding together the wooden fence have all been made by local hands. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing exactly who built the objects that surround your daily life. The afternoon sun now begins to soften ever so slightly, casting longer shadows across the road. The steady sounds of the workshops continue in the background, each one contributing to the gentle heartbeat of the village. These ordinary craftsmen may never become famous, and history books may never record their names. Yet through their patience, skill, and quiet dedication, they shape the everyday world of the 19th century, one careful piece at a time. As another peaceful afternoon slowly moves toward evening, an afternoon in the village school. The afternoon sun now hangs comfortably above the village, casting a warm golden light across the rooftops and narrow dirt roads. The workshops continue their steady rhythm behind you, but your quiet journey now leads toward another important place in 19th century life. The village school. It is a small building, simple in appearance, yet filled with the hopes of families who believe that even a modest education can open the door to a better future. From the outside, the schoolhouse is plain. It is built from local stone or timber, with a modest chimney rising above the roof, and a few tall windows allowing daylight to brighten the room inside. There are no colorful playgrounds, flashing signs, or large sports fields surrounding the building. Instead, a simple yard stretches across the front, where children gather before lessons begin, or quietly talk during short breaks. As you step closer, you hear the soft sound of young voices repeating their lessons together. Their words rise and fall in gentle rhythm, almost like a quiet song carried through the open window. There is no loudspeaker calling students to class. Instead, a small handbell, rung by the teacher, is usually enough to let everyone know that it is time to return to their seats. Inside the classroom, everything feels remarkably simple. Long wooden benches face a large blackboard mounted on the wall. The desks show countless scratches left behind by years of careful writing. There are no computers waiting on tables, no projectors displaying colorful images, and no electric lights glowing overhead. The room depends almost entirely on sunlight streaming through the windows, while candles or oil lamps are reserved for darker winter days. The teacher stands quietly at the front of the room. Teaching in the 19th century requires both patience and discipline. Many classrooms contain children of different ages, learning together in the same space. Younger pupils practice reading simple sentences, while older students work on arithmetic, handwriting, or geography. Managing so many different lessons at once is no easy task. Yet experienced teachers develop calm routines that guide the school day. Books are treasured possessions. Many families cannot afford to own several of them, so students often share copies whenever possible. Every page is turned carefully, every cover protected from unnecessary damage. A damaged book may remain in use for many years, repaired rather than replaced whenever possible. Writing itself is slower than you might expect. Instead of ballpoint pens, many students use dip pens with metal nibs that must be dipped into small bottles of ink every few lines. A careless movement can leave dark stains across the page, or even on a student's fingers. Because paper is valuable, children are encouraged to write neatly and avoid mistakes whenever they can. The lessons are practical and straightforward. Reading allows people to understand letters, newspapers, and religious texts. Arithmetic helps merchants calculate prices, and farmers manage their accounts. Good handwriting is considered an important skill, reflecting both education and personal discipline. Every subject is chosen because it serves a useful purpose in everyday life. Not every child in the 19th century attends school regularly. Many families depend upon the help of their children at home or in the fields, especially during planting and harvest seasons. A boy may spend the morning helping his father repair fences before attending lessons later in the day. A girl might assist her mother with cooking, sewing, or caring for younger brothers and sisters before opening a book. Education is valued, but daily survival often comes first. Despite the modest surroundings, there's a quiet sense of curiosity inside the classroom. A child smiles proudly after solving a difficult arithmetic problem. Another carefully sounds out the words of a new story for the very first time. The teacher offers a gentle nod of approval before moving on to help another student. These small moments of progress may seem ordinary, yet they carry great meaning for the families who hope their children will have opportunities they themselves never enjoyed. Outside, the afternoon remains peaceful. Through the open windows, the distant sounds of village life continue as they always have. A horse slowly pulls a wagon along the road. Birds sing from the nearby hedgerows. Somewhere beyond the schoolyard, the blacksmith's hammer still rings at steady intervals. Life outside the classroom never truly stops. Yet inside, time seems to slow even further as each lesson unfolds with calm patience. Eventually, the teacher closes the final book of the afternoon. The children quietly gather their belongings, carefully placing pens, ink bottles, and well-used books into small bags before walking home in little groups. Their conversations are soft and cheerful, mixing school lessons with stories about evening chores that still await them. As you watch them disappear down the dusty village road, you realize that education in the 19th century is not surrounded by modern convenience or endless technology. It is built upon patience, repetition, and the steady belief that learning, even in the simplest classroom, can gently shape the future. And as the shadows grow a little longer across the village, another quiet chapter of this ordinary day slowly comes to an end. The quiet return from school. The school day has come to a gentle end, and the village slowly welcomes its youngest residents back home. There is no long line of buses waiting outside the schoolhouse, no endless stream of automobiles filling the roads, and no parents checking their watches as they hurry from one appointment to the next. Instead, children simply begin the familiar walk home, following narrow dirt paths they have traveled hundreds of times before. You decide to walk alongside them, matching their slow and unhurried pace. The afternoon has become softer now. The bright sunlight of midday has mellowed into a warm golden glow that stretches across the fields. Long shadows begin to appear beneath the old oak trees, reminding everyone that evening is slowly approaching. Although there are still several hours of daylight remaining, the children carry only a few belongings. A small satchel hangs over one shoulder, holding a treasured book, a notebook filled with careful handwriting, perhaps a slate used for arithmetic, and a tiny bottle of ink wrapped in cloth to prevent it from spilling. Their bags are light compared with those carried by many students today, yet every item inside is valuable and treated with great care. As they walk, their conversations drift gently through the still afternoon air. One child proudly speaks about reading an entire page without making a mistake. Another laughs quietly after remembering how the teacher corrected a misspelled word. A younger student carefully repeats the multiplication tables under his breath, determined not to forget them before tomorrow's lesson. Their voices are calm, free from the constant distractions that fill so much of modern life. The road home passes between open fields where farmers continue their work. Some are gathering bundles of hay into neat stacks before the weather changes. Others guide horses pulling simple wooden plows across dark soil, already being prepared for the next season. The children watch these familiar scenes without surprise. Farming is woven into everyday life, and nearly every family depends on the success of the land in one way or another. As you continue walking, the fresh countryside fills your senses. The scent of wildflowers mixes with the rich smell of earth that has been turned by the plow. Bees move lazily from flower to flower, while butterflies drift gently across the meadows. Small birds dart between hedges, searching for insects, their cheerful songs becoming one of the constant sounds of the afternoon. A narrow wooden bridge crosses a slow-moving stream. The water is remarkably clear, revealing smooth stones resting quietly beneath the surface. A few children pause for a moment to watch tiny fish swimming against the gentle current before continuing their journey home. In another season, they might skip small stones across the water. But today there are chores waiting, and everyone understands that work comes before play. Soon the first cottages begin to appear once again. Thin streams of smoke rise steadily from chimneys as families begin preparing the evening meal. Through open windows you catch the comforting aroma of fresh bread, simmering vegetables and herbs drying above kitchen fires. These familiar smells welcome the children home long before they reach their own front doors. One by one, they quietly disappear into their houses. There is little time to rest after school. A boy immediately changes into older clothes before helping his father collect firewood from a nearby shed. A young girl carefully places her schoolbook on a shelf before joining her mother in feeding the chickens and gathering eggs from the nesting boxes. Another child is sent to bring fresh water from the village well before darkness begins to fall. Homework exists, but so do countless household responsibilities. Inside many homes, grandparents sit near the window, repairing clothing or shelling peas while waiting for the family to gather once again. Their hands move with practiced ease, and their quiet presence reminds everyone that each generation shares the work of daily life. Stories are sometimes exchanged as they work. Simple tales about difficult winters, successful harvests, or amusing moments from years gone by. These memories are passed from one generation to the next, not through recordings or photographs, but through conversation. The village itself begins to slow, almost without anyone noticing. The blacksmith's hammer rings less often than before. The carpenter carefully brushes sawdust from his workbench and places each tool back in its proper place. Shopkeepers count the day's modest earnings before closing their shutters. Even the animals seem to sense that evening is drawing near. Horses return to their stables. Cows wander slowly back from the pasture, and chickens gather together as the daylight gradually softens. Standing quietly on the village road, you can feel the steady rhythm that has guided this entire day. Morning chores gave way to the market to midday work, and the afternoon to lessons and quiet walks home. Nothing extraordinary has happened, yet every hour has been filled with purpose. This is the quiet beauty of ordinary 19th century life. A world where comfort is found not in constant excitement, but in familiar routines repeated with patience, care, and gentle consistency as another peaceful evening slowly approaches. The evening meal around the family table. The afternoon has almost slipped away, and the village begins its slow transition into evening. The bright sunlight that once filled the fields now softens into a warm golden glow. Long shadows stretch across the dirt roads, the gardens, and the stone cottages. The pace of work gradually slows, not because every task has been completed, but because daylight itself is becoming more precious. In the 19th century, the setting sun quietly reminds everyone that the day is drawing to a close. You return to the house just as the evening meal is being prepared. The familiar smell of wood smoke welcomes you before you even step through the front door. Inside, the fireplace has become the heart of the home once again. A sturdy iron pot hangs above the glowing fire, gently bubbling as steam rises into the room. The warmth spreads slowly through the house, creating a comforting contrast to the cooler air beginning to gather outside. The kitchen is alive with quiet activity. One person carefully stirs the stew with a long wooden spoon, making sure nothing sticks to the bottom of the pot. Another slices thick pieces of bread that were baked only yesterday. Fresh butter is placed in a small dish beside a wedge of cheese, while a handful of herbs picked from the garden earlier in the day adds a pleasant fragrance to the meal. Unlike many modern kitchens filled with electric appliances, every step here requires time and patience. Vegetables have been washed by hand, water has been carried from the well, firewood has been chopped, stacked, and carefully fed into the fireplace throughout the day. Even the bread represents hours of kneading, rising, and baking. A simple supper is the result of many small tasks completed with quiet dedication. As the food is finally ready, the family gathers around a sturdy wooden table. It is not a large table, nor is it decorated with expensive cloth or fine silver. Years of daily use have left gentle marks across its surface, each scratch telling the story of countless ordinary meals shared together. Candles are placed carefully on the table. Though they are not yet lit, there is still enough natural light coming through the windows to see one another's faces. Before anyone begins eating, there is often a brief moment of silence. In many homes, this is a time for a simple prayer of gratitude. Families give thanks not only for the food before them, but also for another day of honest work and good health. The words are quiet and familiar, repeated so often that they seem to flow naturally from one generation to the next. The meal itself is plain but satisfying. Thick vegetable stew fills each bowl, accompanied by fresh bread and perhaps a small portion of salted meat if the household has been fortunate. During the summer months, fresh vegetables from the garden appear more often, while winter meals depend heavily on preserved foods carefully stored during the harvest season. Every bite reminds the family of the work that has made this meal possible. Conversation around the table is gentle and unhurried. The father may describe how the fence repair went earlier in the day. The children speak quietly about what they learned at school, carefully showing their neat handwriting, or proudly reciting a lesson they managed to remember. Mother mentions which vegetables will soon be ready for harvest and whether more bread should be baked tomorrow morning. Grandparents occasionally smile as they listen, adding stories from years gone by when similar evenings filled their own childhood homes. No one eats while staring at a screen. There are no phones vibrating with new messages and no television competing for attention. The family gives its full attention to one another. Sometimes the room falls completely silent except for the gentle sound of spoons touching bowls and the quiet crackling of the fire. Yet even these moments of silence feel warm rather than uncomfortable. Outside, the village grows steadily quieter. The last wagon of the day slowly rolls past the house on its way home. A horse snorts softly as it settles into its stable. Birds begin searching for safe places to rest before nightfall, and their songs gradually become fewer as the evening deepens. Somewhere in the distance, the church bell rings once again, gently marking another hour that has slipped away almost unnoticed. When the meal is finished, nothing is wasted. Leftover stew is carefully covered and set aside for tomorrow. Breadcrumbs are collected rather than thrown away. Wooden bowls and spoons are washed by hand in warm water, then placed neatly on a shelf to dry. The table is wiped clean, the chairs pushed back into place, and the room slowly returns to its familiar order. As daylight fades beyond the windows, the family remains together for a little while longer. There is no urgency to rush into the next activity. The evening has its own peaceful rhythm, one that invites conversation, quiet work, and simple companionship. In this ordinary 19th century home, happiness is not measured by luxury or excitement. It is found in the comforting routine of gathering around the same table, sharing the same meal, and ending another honest day in the company of those who matter most. As darkness gently falls over the village, The evening meal has come to an end, and the last traces of daylight slowly fade beyond the horizon. The golden light that filled the fields only an hour ago has given way to soft shades of blue and grey. Across the village, one cottage after another begins to glow with the warm light of candles and oil lamps. Their gentle flicker shines through small windows, creating tiny islands of light in the growing darkness. You remain inside the family home for a few quiet moments. The fireplace still burns steadily, though the flames are lower now than they were during supper. Every piece of firewood is valuable, so the family feeds the fire carefully, adding only what is necessary to keep the room comfortably warm throughout the evening. The crackling of burning logs becomes the loudest sound in the house, filling the silence with a calm and familiar rhythm. Without electricity, evenings in the 19th century naturally become slower. There is no bright ceiling light that can instantly turn night into day. Instead, a few candles provide just enough light for simple tasks. Their soft glow creates long shadows on the walls, making the room feel peaceful rather than dark. Every candle burns slowly, and no one wishes to waste it. When a family depends on candles made from beeswax or tallow, even light must be used wisely. The day's work may be finished outside, but gentle tasks continue indoors. Near the fireplace, someone picks up a basket filled with clothing that needs mending. A small tear in a sleeve is stitched closed with careful hands. A loose button is sewn back onto a wool coat. Thick socks worn during many long walks are repaired instead of replaced. In this world, caring for belongings is simply part of everyday life. Nearby, another member of the family quietly spins wool into yarn. The spinning wheel turns with a slow, steady hum that blends beautifully with the crackling fire. The motion is almost hypnotic. Round and round the wheel turns, producing thread that may one day become a warm blanket, a sweater, or a pair of sturdy mittens for the coming winter. Every length of yarn represents hours of patient work. The children, having completed both their lessons and their chores, gather near the fireplace. One quietly practices reading from a well-worn book, sounding out each word carefully. Another traces letters on a small slate, trying to improve neat handwriting before tomorrow's lesson. Books are precious, and learning often continues long after the school day has ended. Sometimes, instead of reading, the family simply talks. Grandparents begin sharing stories from their younger days, describing unusually harsh winters, successful harvests, or memorable village celebrations from decades earlier. These stories are not told for entertainment alone. They preserve family history, practical wisdom, and traditions that are passed from one generation to the next without ever being written down. Outside, the village grows wonderfully quiet. Most workshops have closed their doors for the night. The carpenter has placed his tools neatly on the workbench. The blacksmith's forge has cooled, and the familiar ringing of his hammer has finally fallen silent. Shopkeepers have locked their doors, and the marketplace that was busy only hours before now sits empty. Beneath the darkening sky, the only sounds that remain are the peaceful ones. A gentle breeze moves through the trees, causing their leaves to whisper softly. Somewhere in the distance, an owl begins its evening call. Crickets hide among the grass, filling the cool night air with their steady song. Occasionally, a horse shifts its weight inside the stable, or a dog lets out a quiet bark before settling down once again. Stepping outside for a moment, you look upward. Without electric streetlights, the night sky appears astonishingly clear. Thousands upon thousands of stars stretch across the heavens, shining with a brightness that many people in the modern world rarely experience. The Milky Way forms a pale ribbon overhead, while familiar constellations slowly drift across the sky as the earth quietly turns beneath them. For many people living in the 19th century, these stars are constant companions. Farmers sometimes use them to judge the passing seasons. Travelers rely upon them for guidance during long journeys. Children grow up learning their names from parents and grandparents, who point toward the sky on clear evenings just like this one. The cool night air carries the comforting scent of damp earth, fresh grass, and the last traces of wood smoke rising from cottage chimneys. The village seems almost asleep already, although a few windows still glow softly in the darkness. Behind each one, another family is finishing the quiet routines that bring every ordinary day to a peaceful close. You take one final look across the silent village before returning inside. Tomorrow morning, the rooster will crow once again. The fireplace will be lit, and the same gentle rhythm of life will begin anew. For now, however, there is nothing left to do but enjoy the calm embrace of the evening as another simple day in the 19th century slowly fades into a quiet and restful night. Preparing for a peaceful night, the village has now settled into the quiet embrace of night. The last hints of twilight have disappeared beyond the distant hills, leaving only the soft glow of candles behind cottage windows. The roads that were gently busy only a few hours ago now lie almost empty. The occasional sound of footsteps has faded, replaced by the peaceful chorus of crickets and the gentle whisper of the evening breeze moving through the trees. Inside the house, the family begins the familiar routine of preparing for the night. There is no single switch that will suddenly darken every room. Instead, each candle is used thoughtfully. One by one, unnecessary lights are gently extinguished, leaving only a single flame burning in the main room. Candles are valuable, and every minute they burn is carefully considered. The warmth from the fireplace still fills the home. Although the fire itself has become smaller, bright flames have settled into glowing red embers that quietly pulse beneath a blanket of grey ash. Every now and then a piece of wood softly cracks, sending a shower of tiny sparks dancing upward before disappearing into the chimney. The sound is comforting, almost like a slow heartbeat that fills the silence without disturbing it. The evening's final chores are simple but important. Wooden shutters are carefully closed over the windows, helping to keep out the cool night air. The front door is checked to make sure it is securely fastened. A small basket of kindling is placed beside the fireplace, ready for tomorrow morning when the first fire of the day will need to be started once again. These tiny preparations ensure that the household will wake to a smooth beginning when the sun rises. You notice that clothing worn throughout the day is folded neatly, rather than left scattered about. Boots are placed beside the door after any mud has been brushed away. A damp coat is hung near the fireplace, where it can dry overnight. Nothing is treated carelessly, because replacing everyday possessions requires both money and time. Looking after what you own is simply another ordinary part of life. In one corner of the room, an elderly grandmother quietly finishes knitting by candlelight. Her hands move with remarkable confidence, hardly needing to look at each stitch. The clicking of the knitting needles creates a soft, steady rhythm that blends perfectly with the quiet crackle of the fire. Perhaps she is making a warm scarf for a grandchild or repairing a blanket that has served the family for many winters already. Nearby, the children begin preparing for bed. There are no glowing screens keeping them awake, and no endless entertainment competing for their attention. One child carefully brushes dust from a pair of worn shoes, while another places a favorite book back onto a small wooden shelf. They exchange a few quiet words before climbing the narrow staircase leading to their bedrooms. The bedrooms themselves are simple and practical. A wooden bed stands against the wall, covered with thick blankets filled with wool, feathers, or straw. A small wash basin rests on a nearby table, beside a pitcher of cool water collected earlier in the day. There are few decorations, yet the room feels welcoming in its simplicity. Everything has its place, and nothing seems unnecessary. Before climbing into bed, many people take a few quiet moments for personal reflection or prayer. It is an opportunity to think about the day's work, to give thanks for another peaceful evening, and to hope that tomorrow will bring good weather and good health. These moments are not rushed. The silence itself becomes part of the routine. Outside, the night continues to deepen. The moon has now risen above the rooftops, bathing the village in a pale silver light. Stone walls, wooden fences, and quiet gardens appear softer beneath the moonlight than they did beneath the afternoon sun. The world feels almost dreamlike, as though every familiar object has become calmer in the gentle darkness. Occasionally, a horse shifts quietly inside its stable, rustling the straw beneath its hooves before settling once again. From a nearby field comes the distant hoot of an owl, searching patiently for its nightly meal. Somewhere far away, a dog barks only once before silence gently returns. These are the sounds that accompany the night, not loud or alarming, but comforting reminders that the world continues its slow rhythm, even while most people sleep. As you stand for one last moment beside the window, you notice how peaceful everything has become. There is no glow of city lights hiding the stars, no constant traffic humming in the distance, and no interruptions demanding attention. The sky stretches endlessly above, filled with countless stars that have watched over generations of ordinary people living ordinary lives. Soon, even the final candle in the house is gently blown out. Darkness settles softly across the room, broken only by the faint orange glow of the dying embers in the fireplace. Wrapped in warm blankets, surrounded by complete stillness, the family drifts peacefully to sleep, knowing that when morning arrives, another gentle day of familiar routines will begin exactly as it always has in the quiet world of the 19th century. Before the sun rises again, the village is now completely asleep. Every cottage rests beneath the quiet blanket of night, and the last glowing ember in many fireplaces has faded into a soft grey ash. Hours have passed since the families gathered around their supper tables, and now almost every window is dark. There are no streetlights casting bright pools of light across the roads, and there are no distant engines humming through the night. The world has become wonderfully still. You lie comfortably beneath a thick wool blanket, listening to the peaceful sounds that fill the darkness. The wooden house settles gently as the cooler night air causes the old beams to shift ever so slightly. Somewhere outside, leaves rustle as a light breeze moves through the trees. Every now and then, the faint call of an owl drifts across the countryside before fading into silence once more. The air inside the bedroom is cool but comfortable. During the colder months, families often place heated bricks or metal warming pans beneath the blankets before going to bed. By morning, the warmth has mostly disappeared, yet the heavy blankets continue to protect against the night's chill. Sleeping through a 19th century night is very different from sleeping today. There is no central heating quietly maintaining the perfect temperature. Instead, comfort depends on good blankets, sturdy walls, the heat stored by the fireplace earlier in the evening. For a few hours, the village belongs almost entirely to nature. Foxes move silently across distant fields in search of food. A hedgehog wanders carefully through a garden, Unnoticed by the sleeping family inside the nearby cottage, tiny insects continue their quiet work beneath the moonlight, while bats glide effortlessly through the night sky, catching mosquitoes with astonishing precision. Most people never witness these small nighttime activities, yet they happen every evening, hidden from view. High above, the stars continue their slow journey across the heavens. Without modern light pollution, the sky appears almost impossibly crowded with stars. The Milky Way stretches overhead like a pale river of light. Many people living in the 19th century know these stars well. Sailors use them to navigate across vast oceans. Farmers watch them as the seasons change. Children learn their names while standing beside parents on quiet summer evenings. As the night slowly continues, time seems almost impossible to measure. Most families do not own accurate clocks in every room. Instead, the passing hours are marked by habit, by the movement of the moon, or occasionally by the distant bell of the village church. The world feels less controlled by minutes and seconds, allowing the night to unfold naturally and without interruption. Eventually, almost without anyone noticing, the darkest part of the night begins to pass. The air grows slightly cooler just before dawn, and a gentle mist starts forming over the nearby fields. It settles softly across the grass, covering gardens, fences, and quiet country lanes with a delicate silver blanket. The entire landscape seems to hold its breath as it waits for morning to arrive. Inside the stable, the horses begin to stir. One gently stamps a hoof against the wooden floor before settling again. The cows remain calm, lying quietly on fresh straw while waiting for another day to begin. Chickens stay perched on their roosts, their feathers fluffed against the cool morning air. Even the animals seem to understand that sunrise is still a little while away. Then, almost too softly to notice at first, the eastern horizon begins to change. The black sky slowly softens into deep shades of blue. A thin ribbon of pale grey appears above the distant hills, growing brighter with every passing minute. The stars closest to the horizon quietly disappear one by one, surrendering their place to the coming day. The first birds awaken before most people do. A single robin begins to sing from the branch of an old apple tree. Moments later, another bird answers from across the village. Soon, the peaceful silence is gently replaced by a chorus of morning songs. None of them are loud. Together, they simply announce that another ordinary day is about to begin. Inside the cottages, families are still asleep, unaware that dawn is quietly approaching. The fireplace waits to be lit once again. Empty buckets stand ready for another trip to the village well. Gardens, workshops, fields, and classrooms all rest peacefully, prepared to welcome another day of familiar routines. As the first gentle rays of sunlight touch the rooftops, the 19th century village slowly awakens once more. Yesterday has ended. Tomorrow has not yet begun, and today arrives just as calmly as every day before it. There will be more bread to bake, more water to carry, more fences to mend, more lessons to learn, and more simple conversations shared between neighbors. Life here is not measured by extraordinary moments, but by the quiet comfort of ordinary ones. And as you watch the sun slowly rise over the peaceful village, you realize that its greatest treasure is not excitement or adventure. It is the gentle rhythm of everyday life, a rhythm that has carried countless ordinary people through countless ordinary days. A Sunday of quiet rest. The new day has begun, but today feels a little different from the busy mornings that came before. The village still awakens with the familiar sound of roosters singing birds, and the first light of dawn spilling gently across the rooftops. yet there is a noticeable calm in the air. The usual rush to begin work in the fields or open the workshops has been replaced by a slower, more peaceful rhythm. It is Sunday, the traditional day of rest for many families living in the 19th century. You wake just as the first sunlight filters through the small bedroom window. The room is cool and the morning air carries the fresh scent of dew-covered grass drifting inside through a slightly open shutter. For a few quiet moments, the house remains almost completely silent. There is no clatter of tools being gathered and no wagon already rolling down the road. Even the animals seem to sense that this morning will unfold more gently than the others. Downstairs, the fireplace is lit once again, though there is no need to prepare a meal in great haste. The family gathers around the table, enjoying a simple breakfast much like any other day. Fresh bread, butter, porridge, perhaps a little cheese, and warm tea if it is available. Yet something feels different. The conversation is slower, the atmosphere lighter. There is time to linger for a few extra minutes before beginning the day's quieter routines. After breakfast, everyone dresses with a little more care than usual. Everyday work clothes are exchanged for the family's best garments, carefully preserved for Sundays and special occasions. Jackets are brushed clean, dresses are smoothed of wrinkles, boots are polished as well as possible, and hats are dusted before being placed neatly on heads. These clothes may not be expensive, but they are worn with pride and treated with great respect. Soon, families begin stepping out of their homes. One by one, neighbors appear along the village roads, greeting each other with warm smiles and polite nods. The atmosphere is peaceful and welcoming. Children walk beside their parents, trying to keep their freshly cleaned clothes neat, while quietly chatting with friends they have not seen since the previous week. The road leading toward the village church gradually fills with people walking at an unhurried pace. No one seems eager to arrive first. The journey itself has become part of the tradition. Along the way, neighbors ask about one another's families, speak about the recent weather, discuss the condition of the crops, or simply enjoy a pleasant conversation beneath the gentle morning sun. The church stands near the center of the village, its stone walls having watched over generations of ordinary lives. Its bell begins to ring across the countryside, each slow chime echoing over the fields and through the quiet streets. The familiar sound reaches cottages, barns, and distant farms, gently reminding everyone that the service is about to begin. Inside, the atmosphere is calm and respectful. Wooden pews fill the simple interior, polished smooth by countless years of use. Sunlight streams through tall windows, casting soft patterns across the stone floor. Candles flicker quietly near the front of the church, adding a gentle warmth to the peaceful surroundings. For many people in the 19th century, attending church is about more than worship. It is one of the few opportunities each week for the entire community to gather together. Here, neighbors who live several miles apart meet face to face. News is exchanged, friendships are strengthened, and newcomers are warmly welcomed into the village. The church serves not only as a place of faith, but also as the heart of community life. After the service ends, people do not immediately hurry home. Instead, they remain outside for a while, standing in small groups beneath the clear sky. Children laugh quietly as they play near the churchyard while adults continue their gentle conversations. There is no pressing schedule waiting for them. The afternoon stretches peacefully ahead, offering rare moments free from the constant demands of work. Eventually, families begin the leisurely walk back to their homes. The roads remain calm, the fields glow beneath the midday sun, and the village feels wonderfully unhurried. Some families plan to enjoy a slightly larger midday meal together. Others may spend the afternoon visiting relatives, reading a favorite book, or simply resting beneath the shade of a large tree. As you walk back through the quiet village, you notice how deeply this slower pace seems woven into everyday life. Even on a day of rest, there is still purpose, routine, and quiet companionship. The ordinary people of the 19th century understand something that is easy to overlook in the modern world. That sometimes the most meaningful moments are not the busiest ones, but the peaceful hours spent together, moving gently through another calm and familiar Sunday. A gentle Sunday afternoon. The church bells have long since fallen silent, and the village settles into one of the quietest moments of the entire week. The roads that were briefly filled with families walking to and from the morning service now become peaceful once again. A warm afternoon sun hangs high above the countryside, and a gentle breeze carries the scent of fresh grass, blooming flowers, and distant wood smoke across the open fields. You stroll slowly through the village, noticing how different this Sunday afternoon feels from the busy weekdays. There is no steady ringing of the blacksmith's hammer echoing through the streets. The carpenter's workshop remains closed, its wooden door firmly shut until Monday morning. The tailor has set aside his needle and thread for a few precious hours of rest. Even the marketplace, usually alive with quiet conversation and the exchange of goods, sits peacefully empty beneath the clear sky. Many families remain close to home, enjoying the rare opportunity to spend time together without feeling the constant pull of daily work. In one cottage garden, grandparents sit on a simple wooden bench beneath an old apple tree. The shade keeps them cool as they quietly watch their grandchildren playing nearby. Every now and then they exchange a few gentle words, smiling as they remember similar afternoons from their own childhood many decades earlier. Children invent games using whatever they can find around them. A smooth stick becomes a toy sword, though their pretend adventures remain cheerful rather than noisy. A small wooden hoop rolls along the dusty road, while two brothers chase after it, laughing softly. A little girl carefully arranges wildflowers into a tiny bouquet for her mother. None of these games require expensive toys or carefully designed playgrounds. Imagination provides everything they need. Nearby, a family has spread a simple blanket across the grass beside their cottage. They are not holding a grand picnic, but they enjoy sitting together in the fresh air. A loaf of bread, a piece of cheese, a few apples, and cool water are more than enough for a pleasant afternoon. Conversation flows naturally, often interrupted by comfortable moments of silence as everyone simply enjoys the peaceful surroundings. As you continue walking, you notice several older villagers sitting outside their homes. One gentleman slowly carves a small wooden spoon with a sharp pocket knife, not because it is urgently needed, but because careful craftsmanship brings quiet satisfaction. A woman beside him gently shells peas into a woven basket. Their hands continue working almost automatically while their conversation drifts from memories of past harvests to hopes for the coming season. Not every household spends the afternoon in exactly the same way. Some families choose to visit relatives who live a short walk away. Since travel is slow and opportunities to gather are precious, these visits are welcomed with genuine warmth. A pot of tea is prepared, chairs are placed near the fireplace or beneath a shady tree, and hours pass in pleasant conversation. Stories are shared, children play together, and news travels from one family to another through simple, face-to-face conversation. Rather than letters or newspapers, the countryside itself seems to rest as well, Horses graze quietly behind wooden fences, occasionally lifting their heads before returning to the fresh grass. Cows wander lazily through green pastures, their bells creating a soft, gentle rhythm carried by the afternoon breeze. Chickens scratch the earth without any particular hurry, and a sleepy farm dog stretches beneath the shade of a wagon before drifting into another peaceful nap. You eventually find yourself standing at the edge of a gently rolling meadow. Wildflowers sway gracefully with every movement of the wind. Bees move patiently from blossom to blossom, continuing their work without drawing attention to themselves. Butterflies float lazily through the warm air, never seeming to hurry toward any destination. Even nature appears to move more slowly here, perfectly matching the relaxed pace of the village. As the afternoon gradually begins to fade, the sunlight becomes softer, painting the fields in warm shades of gold. The shadows beneath the trees grow a little longer, though there is still plenty of daylight remaining. Families know that tomorrow will bring another week of work, but there is no reason to think about it just yet. This quiet Sunday afternoon belongs entirely to the present moment. Standing there, surrounded by peaceful cottages, gentle countryside, and ordinary people enjoying an ordinary day, you begin to understand why life in the 19th century often feels so calming to imagine. There are no grand celebrations, no remarkable discoveries, and no dramatic events unfolding around you. Instead, there is only the quiet comfort of familiar faces, simple pleasures, and the slow passage of time. It is a world where an uneventful afternoon is not considered boring at all. It is simply another treasured part of a well-lived life, gently carrying everyone toward another calm and restful evening. The village bakery and the comfort of fresh bread. The peaceful Sunday afternoon slowly begins to drift toward evening, and as you continue your gentle walk through the village, a familiar and comforting aroma catches your attention. It is the rich, warm smell of freshly baked bread. Even before you see the small bakery, you know exactly where it is. The scent of baking bread travels quietly through the narrow streets, mixing with the fresh countryside air in a way that feels both simple and welcoming. You follow the pleasant aroma until you reach a modest brick building with a sturdy wooden door and a single chimney rising above its roof. The bakery is not large. It serves only the surrounding village and a handful of nearby farms. There are no glass display cases filled with dozens of different pastries or colorful cakes. Instead, the shelves hold rows of simple round loaves, each one carefully made by hand, using recipes that have changed very little over the years. Inside, the warmth of the great brick oven fills the room. Even on a cool evening, the bakery remains comfortably warm. The baker has already been awake for many hours. In fact, long before the first rooster greeted the morning, he was here, kneading dough by hand, feeding the oven with dry firewood, and patiently waiting for the perfect temperature. Baking bread in the 19th century is not a quick task. It requires experience, careful timing, and a great deal of patience. Large wooden bowls sit upon a sturdy workbench, dusted lightly with flour. Nearby, sacks of wheat and rye are stacked neatly against the wall. Every handful of flour represents months of work in the fields. Farmers planted the grain, watched it grow through changing seasons, harvested it under the summer sun, and carried it to the village mill, where heavy millstones slowly ground it into fine flour. Only after all of that careful work could the baker begin his own part of the process. You watch as the baker gently presses his hands into a fresh ball of dough. The movement is calm and steady, almost like a quiet rhythm. Fold, press, turn. Fold, press, turn. Again and again, without rushing. Years of experience have taught him exactly how the dough should feel beneath his hands. He hardly needs to think about each movement anymore. Once the dough has risen, it is shaped into neat round loaves and placed carefully inside the glowing brick oven. There are no digital timers or electronic temperature controls. Instead, the baker judges the heat by experience alone, watching the color of the fire and feeling the warmth radiating from the oven walls. It is a skill that cannot easily be learned from a book. It comes only after many years of daily practice. As the bread bakes, the entire bakery fills with its rich aroma. The crust slowly turns a deep golden brown, while the inside remains soft and warm. Every loaf looks slightly different from the next because each has been shaped by human hands rather than machines. These small imperfections are simply part of their charm. Customers arrive throughout the afternoon, greeting the baker by name. There is no hurry. A few neighbors pause for a pleasant conversation before choosing a loaf for the evening meal. Some exchange news about the weather or ask how the recent harvest has been. Others simply enjoy standing in the comforting warmth of the bakery for a few extra moments before stepping back into the cool evening air. Fresh bread is one of the most important foods in the 19th century. It appears on the table almost every day, served with butter, cheese, soup, or stew. Even bread that has become slightly stale is never wasted. It may be toasted beside the fire, softened in soup, or turned into breadcrumbs for future meals. Every loaf is valued because producing it requires the hard work of many different people. Before leaving, you purchase a warm loaf wrapped carefully in a clean cloth. It is still slightly warm from the oven, and its comforting scent follows you as you begin the slow walk home. The village streets are becoming quieter now. A few windows glow softly with candlelight, and thin streams of smoke rise gently from cottage chimneys as families prepare for another peaceful evening together. Holding the fresh loaf beneath your arm, you realize that something as ordinary as bread tells the story of an entire community. It speaks of farmers working patiently in the fields, millers turning heavy stones beside flowing rivers, bakers rising before dawn, and families gathering together around simple wooden tables. None of these moments seem extraordinary on their own, yet together they create the quiet rhythm that defines everyday life in the 19th century. As the sun continues its slow journey toward the horizon, you make your way back through the peaceful village, carrying not only a loaf of fresh bread, but also another small reminder that the greatest comforts of this gentle world are often found in its simplest routines. An evening walk through the quiet countryside. With the warm loaf of bread tucked safely beneath your arm, you leave the bakery behind and continue your slow walk through the village. The evening has now settled gently over the countryside. The bright afternoon sun has softened into a rich golden light, painting every rooftop, stone wall, and grassy field with warm colors. It is one of those peaceful moments that seems to last much longer than it truly does. There is no destination waiting for you. There is no appointment to keep, no train to catch, and no clock urging you to hurry. In the 19th century, an evening walk is not considered wasted time. It is simply a pleasant way to enjoy the last hours of daylight before darkness slowly arrives. The village road stretches quietly ahead, bordered by low stone walls that have stood for generations. Tiny patches of moss grow between the weathered stones, while wildflowers bloom along the edges of the path. Daisies, buttercups, and small blue cornflowers sway gently whenever the evening breeze passes through. Bees are beginning to return to their hives after a long day of collecting nectar. their steady buzzing growing softer with each passing minute. As you leave the last cottages behind, the open countryside welcomes you with remarkable stillness. Wide fields extend in every direction, divided by wooden fences and ancient hedgerows. Some fields are covered with golden wheat that moves like gentle waves whenever the wind touches it. Others have already been harvested, leaving neat rows of straw that quietly wait to be gathered before the weather changes. A narrow dirt path leads you toward a small hill overlooking the village. You climb it slowly, taking careful steps over uneven ground. There is no reason to rush. Every few moments you pause, simply to enjoy the peaceful view. Behind you, the rooftops of the village appear small and orderly, with thin streams of smoke rising lazily from chimneys. Beyond them, church steeples reach toward the sky, standing as familiar landmarks that can be seen from nearly every field. The air smells wonderfully fresh. There is the rich scent of warm earth, recently cut hay, and flowering clover. Somewhere nearby, a farmer has stacked bundles of harvested grain into neat rows that will later be carried to the barn. Their sweet, dry fragrance drifts across the fields, mixing with the cool evening breeze. As you continue walking, you notice a shepherd guiding a small flock of sheep toward their enclosure for the night. The sheep move calmly, stopping every now and then to nibble the last bits of grass before continuing along the path. The shepherd does not shout or hurry them. With only a quiet whistle and the help of a loyal sheepdog, the flock slowly makes its way home. Nearby, a small stream winds peacefully through the meadow. The water is so clear that smooth pebbles resting on the bottom can easily be seen. Tiny fish dart between patches of water plants, while dragonflies hover gracefully just above the surface. You pause for a moment beside the stream, listening to the gentle sound of flowing water. It is a sound that has remained unchanged for countless generations, offering the same quiet comfort to everyone who stops to listen. The evening sky begins to change as the sun slowly lowers toward the horizon. Shades of pale blue gradually become soft gold, gentle orange, and delicate pink. Wisps of cloud catch the fading sunlight, glowing briefly before their colors slowly begin to fade. Without towering buildings or bright city lights, the sky feels enormous, stretching endlessly above the peaceful countryside. Birds begin returning to their nests after a busy day. Swallows dart gracefully through the air, catching insects one last time before nightfall. In the distance, you hear the gentle cooing of wood pigeons hidden among the trees. Their calls echo softly across the quiet landscape, blending perfectly with the rustling leaves and the distant lowing of cattle returning to the barns. As you reach the top of the hill, you stop once more to admire the view. The entire village lies peacefully below, surrounded by fields, forests, and winding country roads. There is no smoke from factories darkening the sky, no endless rows of houses stretching to the horizon, and no constant noise breaking the silence. Everything appears balanced, calm, and wonderfully ordinary. You realize that evenings like this were once a common part of everyday life for millions of ordinary people. They may not have considered these quiet walks remarkable, yet from the perspective of the modern world, they seem almost magical in their simplicity. The slow pace, the clean air, the familiar faces, and the gentle beauty of the countryside create a sense of peace that asks for nothing except your attention. As the sun finally slips below the distant hills, a coolness begins to settle across the fields. The first evening stars prepare to appear above the fading light, and the village below glows softly with the warm flicker of candles being lit inside the cottages. It is time to begin the gentle walk back home, carrying with you the calm feeling of another quiet evening in the peaceful world of the 19th century. The village blacksmith at day's end. As you leave the quiet hillside behind and make your way back toward the village, the last rays of the sun gently disappear below the horizon. The evening air has grown cooler now, carrying the pleasant scent of fresh grass and wood smoke. Most of the village has already settled into its familiar nighttime routine. Families are gathering indoors. Candles have been lit behind small windows, and the peaceful sounds of conversation drift softly through the still air. Yet there is one place where a little work remains to be done. Near the center of the village, a warm orange glow shines through the open doorway of the blacksmith's forge. It is much quieter than it was earlier in the day, but the fire has not yet gone out. The blacksmith has one final task to finish before he can return home for the evening. You step quietly inside. The forge feels pleasantly warm after the cool evening breeze outside. The large stone fireplace still holds glowing coals that radiate a steady heat. Throughout the workshop, shadows dance gently across the wooden walls as the fire flickers, creating a calm and almost peaceful atmosphere despite the hard work that has taken place here all day. The blacksmith stands beside the anvil, his leather apron showing the marks of many years of honest labor. His hands are rough and strong, shaped by decades of lifting heavy iron and swinging a hammer thousands upon thousands of times. Yet tonight his movements are slower than before. There is no hurry. The day is ending, and every action is carried out with quiet care. Resting on the workbench is a horseshoe that still needs a small adjustment. Earlier in the afternoon, a local farmer stopped by after noticing that one of his horses had thrown a shoe while working in the fields. Rather than leaving the repair until tomorrow, the blacksmith has chosen to finish it before closing the workshop for the night. He places the horseshoe back into the glowing coals. Slowly, the iron begins to change color, first becoming a dull red and then glowing bright orange. There is no loud machinery heating the metal, only the steady fire, carefully tended throughout the day, provides the necessary heat. After a few patient moments, the blacksmith lifts the iron with heavy tongs and places it carefully upon the anvil. Clang! The first hammer strike echoes softly through the nearly silent village. Clang! Another measured blow follows. Each strike is calm and deliberate. There are no wasted movements. Every swing shapes the metal a little more, guided by years of experience rather than hurried effort. The sound, once heard throughout the village all day long, now feels almost comforting in the quiet evening. When the horseshoe is finally shaped to perfection, the blacksmith lowers it into a bucket of cool water. A gentle hiss rises into the air as steam curls upward before disappearing. For a few brief seconds, the workshop is filled with the pleasant scent of warm iron meeting cold water. With the final repair complete, the blacksmith begins cleaning his tools. The hammer is placed carefully back onto its rack. The tongs are hung neatly beside the forge. Small metal scraps are gathered from the floor and sorted into a wooden box where they may one day be melted down and used again. Nothing is wasted. Even the smallest piece of iron may prove useful in the future. The forge itself must also be prepared for tomorrow. Using a long iron poker, the blacksmith gently spreads the remaining coals so they can cool safely during the night. Fresh firewood is stacked neatly beside the hearth, ready for another busy morning. A bucket of water is refilled and placed within easy reach. These simple routines are repeated every evening without fail. Before leaving, he pauses for just a moment at the doorway of the workshop. He looks across the quiet village, where warm candlelight shines from cottage windows. Somewhere nearby, children are already asleep. Families finish their evening conversations beside glowing fireplaces. Dogs curl up peacefully outside barn doors, while horses settle comfortably onto fresh straw. The blacksmith quietly closes the heavy wooden door behind him. The familiar workshop falls silent. Tomorrow morning, before many of the villagers have even opened their eyes, the forge will come alive once again. The fire will be lit. The hammer will ring across the village, and another ordinary day of careful craftsmanship will begin. But tonight there is only peace. As you continue your walk through the calm streets, you realize that the blacksmith work, like so much of life in the 19th century, is built not upon excitement or speed, but upon patience, skill, and quiet repetition. Day after day, year after year, these ordinary routines quietly shape the world around them, leaving behind not great monuments or famous victories, but something perhaps even more valuable: a dependable life, built through steady hands, honest work, and evenings that always ended in gentle silence. Washing day in the 19th century. The following morning arrives just as gently as all the mornings before it. The first rays of sunlight creep over the rooftops. The familiar rooster announces the beginning of another day, and thin streams of smoke begin rising from cottage chimneys. The village slowly awakens once again, ready to repeat the quiet routines that have shaped everyday life for generations. Today, however, one particular household task deserves your attention. It is a chore that almost every family knows well, one that requires patience, strength, and many hours of careful work. It is washing day. In the 19th century, washing clothes is nothing like the simple process we know today. There are no washing machines humming quietly in the corner of the house, no bottles of scented detergent waiting on a shelf, and no convenient dryers ready to finish the job. Every shirt, apron, blanket, and pair of stockings must be cleaned entirely by hand. You step into the kitchen early in the morning, where preparations have already begun. A large iron pot hangs above the fireplace, slowly heating water over the fire. It takes quite some time for enough water to become hot, and someone must keep adding pieces of dry wood to the flames. Nothing happens quickly. Even the first stage of washing demands patience. Nearby, a large wooden tub waits on the floor. It has been scrubbed clean after its last use, and is ready to hold the warm water. Beside it sits a simple bar of homemade soap. Unlike the neatly packaged soaps found in modern shops, this one has been made by hand, using animal fat and wood ash. Its scent is plain and earthy, but it serves its purpose well. One by one, the family's clothes are gathered from wooden hooks and woven baskets. Work shirts stained with soil, aprons marked by flour, children's stockings dusty from long walks, and heavy wool blankets that have kept everyone warm through cool nights, all wait for their turn. Clothing is never washed carelessly. Every item represents many hours of spinning, weaving, sewing, and mending, so it is handled with great respect. The first garments are carefully lowered into the warm water. Soon the washing begins. Sleeves are rubbed firmly between strong hands. Collars receive extra attention where dirt has gathered after many days of work. Stubborn stains are scrubbed patiently with soap before being rinsed again and again in clean water. It is tiring work, and there are no shortcuts. As the morning continues, the yard slowly fills with signs of the day's activity. Long clotheslines are stretched between wooden posts or nearby trees. One by one, freshly washed garments are hung in the fresh country air. White linen sheets flutter gently in the breeze like quiet sails, while shirts, Aprons and towels sway softly beneath the bright blue sky. The weather plays an important role in washing day. A warm, sunny afternoon is welcomed with genuine gratitude because it helps the clothes dry more quickly. If dark clouds appear unexpectedly, everyone moves with surprising speed, gathering the washing before the rain can undo hours of careful work. Nature always has the final say. Children often help with the lighter tasks. A young boy carries empty buckets back to the well for fresh water. His sister carefully hands wooden clothespins to her mother while watching the clean sheets dance in the wind. These chores become part of everyday learning. By helping from an early age, children quietly prepare for the responsibilities they will one day carry as adults. While the washing dries, there is still plenty of work to do. Torn sleeves are mended with neat stitches. Buttons that have loosened during the wash are sewn firmly back into place. A worn patch is added to a pair of trousers that still has many months of useful life ahead. Nothing is thrown away simply because it shows signs of age. As you look across the yard, you notice how peaceful the scene feels. The gentle breeze moves through rows of clean clothing. Birds continue singing from nearby trees, completely unconcerned with the busy morning below. Bees drift lazily among the flowers growing beside the cottage fence, and somewhere beyond the garden, the distant sound of a wagon slowly rolling along the road reminds you that the village continues its calm rhythm. By late afternoon, the clothes have become crisp and dry beneath the warmth of the sun. One by one, they are carefully folded and carried back inside the house. Fresh linen has a clean scent that comes not from perfumes or artificial fragrances, but from sunshine, fresh air, and hours spent outdoors. The cupboards are neatly filled once again, ready for another week of ordinary life. Washing day may seem like a simple household chore, but it quietly reveals something important about life in the 19th century. Even the most ordinary tasks require time, effort, and cooperation. Every clean shirt hanging on the line tells the story of water carried by hand, firewood gathered from the forest, soap made at home, and patient hands working hour after hour. In this quiet village, comfort is not created by convenience. It is earned through steady routines, shared responsibilities, and the gentle satisfaction of a job carefully completed before another peaceful evening begins. A visit to the village general store. The day continues at its familiar, unhurried pace. The freshly washed clothes now hang neatly folded inside the cupboards. The morning's chores have been completed, and the village settles into another calm afternoon. The sun shines gently overhead, warming the narrow dirt roads that connect each cottage, workshop, and farm. There is no urgency in the air. One task has ended, and another quietly begins. Today, you decide to visit the village general store. Unlike the enormous supermarkets of the modern world, a 19th century general store is small, simple, and practical. It is not a place filled with endless choices or brightly colored advertisements. Instead, it carries only the everyday necessities that local families depend upon. Every item on its shelves has earned its place by being useful. As you walk along the familiar road, you pass the cottages you have come to know so well. Gardens continue to flourish beside stone walls. Chickens wander freely across the yards, and cats lounge comfortably in patches of afternoon sunshine. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves of the old trees lining the road, while somewhere in the distance, the steady sound of an axe splitting firewood reminds you that another family is quietly preparing for the coming winter. The general store stands near the center of the village, beside the small post office and not far from the church. Its wooden sign hangs above the entrance, gently swaying whenever the wind blows. The building itself is modest, with large front windows displaying a few carefully arranged goods rather than elaborate decorations. As you push open the heavy wooden door, a small brass bell hanging above it gives a soft ring. The shop is cool and pleasantly quiet inside. Sunlight filters through the front windows, falling across sturdy wooden shelves that stretch from floor to ceiling. Every shelf is carefully organized. There's no wasted space. Glass jars filled with sugar, tea, coffee, and dried beans stand neatly beside sacks of flour and oats. Bars of homemade soap sit beside candles, sewing needles, spools of thread, and small boxes of matches. The pleasant scent of coffee beans mixes with the aroma of leather, fresh wood, spices, and beeswax candles. It is a comforting smell that belongs only to places where many useful things are gathered together under one roof. Behind the wooden counter stands the shopkeeper. He knows nearly every customer by name. In a small village, people visit the store not only to purchase supplies, but also to exchange greetings and learn the latest local news. The pace of conversation is gentle. No one appears rushed, and no long queues form at the counter. A farmer enters carrying a small basket of fresh eggs. Rather than paying entirely with coins, he exchanges them for flour and lamp oil. Bartering still plays an important role in many rural communities, especially among neighbors who have known each other for years. Trust is often just as valuable as money. Nearby, a young mother carefully examines several bolts of cloth stacked neatly on a shelf. She is choosing material for a new dress that she plans to sew herself before the colder weather arrives. Ready-made clothing is expensive and often difficult to find, so sewing remains an ordinary skill practiced in many homes. An elderly gentleman slowly studies a small collection of reading glasses displayed inside a wooden case. Beside them rest pocket watches, carefully polished, but far too costly for many families. These are items that people purchase only after much thought, knowing they may last for decades if treated with care. You notice that nearly everything inside the store has a practical purpose. There are no shelves overflowing with decorative objects or products designed simply to catch attention. Every purchase is considered carefully because household budgets are limited, and unnecessary spending is avoided whenever possible. When it is your turn at the counter, you place a few simple items before the shopkeeper: a small bag of tea, a handful of sewing needles, a fresh candle, and perhaps a little salt. He weighs each item using a sturdy balance scale with brass weights, making small adjustments until both sides rest perfectly level. There is something satisfying about watching such careful precision. Your purchases are wrapped neatly in brown paper and tied with simple string. There are no plastic bags, no printed logos, and no unnecessary packaging. Everything is prepared with the expectation that it will be carried home by hand. Before leaving, you spend a few moments listening to the quiet conversations taking place around the shop. Neighbors speak about the weather, the condition of the roads, an upcoming harvest, and a family preparing to welcome a new baby. The news travels slowly here, carried by friendly conversations, rather than telephones or newspapers arriving every hour. As you step back outside, the afternoon sun greets you once again. The little brass bell rings softly behind you as the shop door closes. Holding your neatly wrapped parcel, you begin the familiar walk home through the peaceful village. Looking back for just a moment, you realize that the general store is much more than a place to buy supplies. It is a meeting place, a source of conversation, and a quiet reminder that life in the 19th century is built upon simple routines and strong community ties. Here, even the smallest errand becomes an opportunity to slow down, greet a neighbor, and enjoy another ordinary afternoon in a world that asks for patience rather than speed. The village post office and the long journey of a letter. Leaving the general store behind, you continue your quiet walk through the village with your small parcel tucked safely beneath your arm. The afternoon remains calm, and the golden sunlight gently warms the stone cottages and narrow dirt roads. There is still plenty of daylight left, and without any need to hurry home, you decide to stop at another place that plays a quiet but important role in 19th century life, the village post office. From the outside, the building is modest, almost easy to overlook. It is smaller than the church, and far less busy than the marketplace on a market day. A simple wooden sign hangs above the entrance, gently moving whenever the breeze passes through. A few bicycles do not stand outside, for they are still uncommon in many places, and there are certainly no delivery vans waiting nearby. Instead, a single horse is tied patiently to a wooden hitching post while its owner finishes his business inside. You push open the heavy wooden door, and a small bell announces your arrival with a soft, familiar chime. The room is quiet. Behind a sturdy wooden counter stands the village postmaster, carefully sorting letters into neat bundles. His work requires patience and accuracy, for every envelope must begin a long journey toward its destination. Unlike the modern world, where a message can travel across continents in a matter of seconds, communication in the 19th century moves at the pace of horses, trains, and ships. Writing a letter is not something people do casually. It often takes time to compose, and once it is sent, the reply may not arrive for days or even weeks. Because of this, every word carries a little more weight and a little more thought. On a nearby table rests a bottle of black ink, several clean sheets of paper, and a collection of envelopes. A customer sits quietly at the table, carefully writing to a son who left the village months ago to work in a distant city. Every sentence is written slowly in neat handwriting. There is no delete key to correct a mistake, no spell checker to offer advice. Each line is considered before the pen touches the paper. The postmaster receives the finished letter with a polite smile. He carefully folds it, checks the address once more, and places it into a leather mailbag that will leave the village before sunset. Tomorrow morning, the bag will travel by horse and carriage to the nearest railway station. From there, it will continue its journey by train, perhaps changing hands several times before finally reaching its destination. You imagine the remarkable journey of a single letter. It may pass through busy towns, quiet countryside, and large cities. It may cross rivers on wooden bridges or travel aboard a steamship if it is bound for another country. Along the way, countless strangers will handle it with care, each playing a small part in delivering one person's thoughts to another. A young woman enters the post office, carrying a carefully wrapped parcel. Inside is a knitted scarf she has made for her sister, who now lives many miles away. The package is tied securely with twine and sealed with wax to protect it during the long journey. Though it is only a simple gift, it carries warmth, affection, and the comfort of home. Nearby, an elderly gentleman waits patiently to collect a letter he has been expecting. When the postmaster finally hands it to him, he removes his spectacles and smiles quietly before even breaking the seal. Sometimes simply seeing the familiar handwriting of a loved one is enough to brighten an ordinary afternoon. The room remains peaceful. There are no ringing telephones interrupting conversations, no loud printers, and no constant stream of electronic notifications. Instead, there is only the gentle rustle of paper, the scratching sound of pen against parchment, and the quiet voices of neighbors greeting one another as they come and go. Before leaving, you take one last look around the little post office. Every shelf, every pigeonhole filled with neatly sorted letters, represents connections between families separated by distance. News of births, weddings, harvests, birthdays, and simple everyday life all travel through this humble building. Joy, worry, hope, and love are carefully folded inside ordinary envelopes, waiting patiently to be delivered. As you step back outside, the late afternoon sun has begun its slow descent toward the horizon. The shadows across the village grow a little longer, and a cool breeze gently stirs the leaves of the nearby trees. You continue your walk at the same relaxed pace, reflecting on how different communication once was. In the 19th century, people could not expect an instant reply. They learned to wait with patience, to choose their words carefully, and to treasure every letter that arrived at their door. Perhaps that slow rhythm made each message feel more meaningful. Every envelope carried not only ink on paper, but also time, effort, and genuine care. With that quiet thought in your mind, you continue along the peaceful village road, listening to the soft sound of your footsteps as another calm afternoon slowly drifts toward evening. In the gentle world of the 19th century, gathering firewood before winter, the afternoon slowly gives way to another peaceful evening, and as you leave the village post office behind, you notice a quiet sense of preparation spreading through the community. The air feels just a little cooler than it did a few weeks ago. Although winter has not yet arrived, everyone understands that the changing seasons wait for no one. In the 19th century, preparing for winter is not something that can be postponed. It is a necessary part of life, carried out little by little over many ordinary days. You follow a narrow path leading toward the edge of the village, where several families are busy gathering firewood. The path winds gently between open meadows and small patches of woodland. Fallen leaves rustle beneath your boots, and the fresh scent of pine, oak, and damp earth fills the cool afternoon air. The forest is peaceful, disturbed only by birds singing high in the branches and the occasional tapping of a woodpecker somewhere deeper among the trees. Firewood is one of the most valuable resources a household can have. Every meal cooked over the fireplace, every kettle of water brought to a boil, and every warm evening spent beside the fire depends upon a good supply of dry wood. Without enough fuel, winter becomes long, uncomfortable, and sometimes dangerous. Because of this, gathering wood is never treated as an unimportant chore. Near the edge of the forest, a father and his two sons work quietly together. They are not cutting down healthy young trees without thought. Instead, they carefully collect fallen branches and remove older trees that are ready to be replaced by new growth. Forests are valuable, and many villagers understand that taking too much today may leave too little for tomorrow. The steady rhythm of an axe echoes softly through the woods. One measured swing, then another. Each strike sends the pleasant scent of freshly split timber into the crisp afternoon air. There is no loud machinery breaking the silence, only the simple sound of steel meeting wood, followed by the quiet pause before the next careful swing. Once a log has been cut into manageable pieces, it is carried to a horse-drawn wagon waiting nearby. Children help by gathering smaller branches and stacking them neatly between the larger logs. Even the youngest members of the family contribute in whatever way they can. They learn from an early age that every pair of helping hands makes their work a little easier. You notice how carefully the wood is sorted. Thick hardwood logs from oak or beech are placed together because they burn slowly and provide lasting warmth during the coldest nights. Softer woods, such as pine, are stacked separately. They catch fire more quickly and are often used to start the morning fire before heavier logs are added. Years of experience have taught families exactly which wood serves each purpose best. By late afternoon, the wagon is nearly full. The horse waits patiently as the final pieces are loaded, occasionally flicking its tail to chase away a fly. There is no urgency. Everyone works at a steady pace, knowing that careful preparation is more important than speed. Back at the cottage, the firewood is unloaded one piece at a time. Each log is stacked neatly beneath a simple wooden shelter beside the house, where it will remain dry through autumn rains and winter snow. The stack grows higher with every trip, becoming a quiet symbol of security for the months ahead. Nearby, an elderly neighbor pauses to admire the growing pile. He remembers winters from many years ago, when heavy snowfall covered the village for weeks, making travel nearly impossible. During those long evenings, families depended entirely upon the firewood they had gathered during warmer months. Those memories remind everyone why today's work matters. As the sun slowly sinks lower, golden light filters through the trees, illuminating the neatly stacked logs with a soft glow. The forest itself seems to grow quieter. Birds begin returning to their nests, and a cool breeze gently stirs the branches overhead. The day's work is nearly complete. Before heading inside, you take one final look at the carefully arranged woodpile. To modern eyes, it may seem like nothing more than a collection of logs, but to a 19th century family, it represents warm meals, comfortable evenings, glowing fireplaces, and peaceful nights protected from the winter cold. Every piece of wood tells the story of patient effort and thoughtful preparation. As darkness begins its slow approach, the village once again settles into its familiar evening rhythm. Thin streams of smoke rise from chimneys. Candlelight begins to glow behind cottage windows, and families gather indoors after another honest day's work. There is comfort in knowing that the firewood has been gathered, the home is ready, and another quiet chapter of ordinary life has gently come to an end. A rainy day in the 19th century. Morning arrives quietly, but today it brings something different. Instead of bright sunlight spilling across the village, thick grey clouds stretch from one horizon to the other. The air feels cool and heavy, carrying the unmistakable scent of approaching rain. The birds sing a little less than usual, and even the farm animals seem calmer, as though they too know what kind of day lies ahead. As you look out through the small window of the cottage, the first raindrops begin to fall. At first they are gentle, tapping softly against the wooden shutters and the roof above. Then, little by little, the rain grows steadier until the entire village is wrapped in a peaceful curtain of water. Unlike today, when many people simply drive to work or remain indoors without much thought, rain in the 19th century changes the rhythm of almost every household. Dirt roads quickly become muddy, wagon wheels sink deeper into the soft ground, and outdoor work must often be delayed. Yet the villagers do not complain. Rain is simply another part of life, arriving when it chooses and leaving when it is ready. Inside the cottage, the fireplace becomes the heart of the home once again. A fresh fire is carefully lit, and its warm glow fills the room with comfort. Wet boots are placed nearby to dry, while damp coats are hung from wooden pegs beside the chimney. The gentle crackling of burning logs mixes perfectly with the steady sound of rain falling outside. The windows begin to mist slightly from the warmth inside. Every now and then, Someone wipes the glass with a cloth to look outside at the quiet village. The gardens, which only yesterday were bright with sunshine, now glisten with countless tiny drops of water. The leaves of the cabbage and beans shine as though each one has been carefully polished. Although many outdoor chores must wait, there is still plenty to do indoors. A basket of mending is brought to the table, filled with shirts needing new buttons, stockings with small holes, and aprons with loose stitching. Needle and thread move patiently through the fabric, while the rain continues its gentle rhythm beyond the windows. In another corner of the room, someone begins polishing leather boots with a soft cloth and homemade wax. These boots must last for many years, so they receive careful attention after every muddy journey. Nearby, a young boy quietly sharpens a small carving knife under his father's watchful eye, learning that even simple tools deserve proper care. The children are unusually calm today. Without dry fields to explore, they remain indoors, finding quiet ways to pass the time. One practices neat handwriting on a slate. Another reads aloud from a favorite book, carefully sounding out each word. Their younger sister sits beside their grandmother, learning the first simple stitches of sewing. There is no boredom, only a gentle acceptance that rainy days invite different kinds of activities. Outside, the village appears almost magical beneath the falling rain. Water gathers in small puddles along the narrow roads, reflecting the grey sky above. Tiny streams form beside the paths, carrying leaves and small twigs gently downhill. The gardens drink deeply from the rain, while the fields welcome every drop that will help future crops grow strong. From time to time, a horse-drawn wagon passes slowly along the muddy road. The driver guides the horse carefully, avoiding the deepest patches of soft earth whenever possible. The wheels turn steadily, leaving deep tracks behind them. There is no frustration, only patience. Everyone understands that journeys simply take a little longer on days like this. Inside the barns, the animals remain dry and comfortable. Cows chew their hay peacefully. Horses stand quietly in fresh straw, and chickens settle together on their wooden roosts. The rain tapping softly against the roof seems almost to lull them into a peaceful stillness. As afternoon slowly turns toward evening, the rain begins to ease. The steady drumming upon the roof grows lighter until only an occasional drop falls from the eaves. Then, almost without anyone noticing, a patch of pale blue appears between the clouds. Soon, sunlight breaks through once again. Golden rays shine across the wet fields, making every blade of grass sparkle with tiny drops of water. A rainbow slowly forms above the distant hills, stretching gracefully across the sky. The villagers pause for a moment to admire the beautiful sight before quietly returning to their ordinary routines. The rain has washed the dust from the roads, refreshed the gardens, and filled the air with the fresh scent of wet earth and clean leaves. It has also reminded everyone of an important lesson that life in the 19th century teaches so well. Not every day needs to be filled with activity. Sometimes the most peaceful hours are those spent indoors, listening to the gentle sound of rain while simple work is done beside the warmth of a glowing fire. As evening approaches once more, the village feels calm, refreshed, and ready for another quiet night beneath the changing sky. Harvest time in the village fields. The gentle rain from yesterday has passed, leaving the countryside fresh and full of life. As dawn slowly breaks over the village, the fields glisten with tiny drops of dew that sparkle like countless little diamonds. In the morning sunlight, the air feels wonderfully crisp, carrying the rich scent of damp earth, ripe grain, and wildflowers growing along the edges of the narrow country roads. Today is an important day in the village. It is harvest time. For months, the farmers have watched over these fields with quiet patience. They planted the seeds in spring, cared for the growing crops throughout the summer, and hoped for enough sunshine and rain to help everything grow. Now, after many weeks of waiting, the grain stands tall and golden beneath the clear blue sky, ready to be gathered before autumn gives way to winter. You walk slowly toward the fields where families have already begun their work. There is no loud machinery crossing the landscape. Instead, the harvest moves at the steady pace of human hands. Men and women stand side by side, using curved sickles to cut the wheat, one handful at a time. Each careful sweep produces another bundle of golden stalks, which are gently laid upon the ground before being tied together with strands of straw. The rhythm of the harvest is peaceful. Cut, gather, tie. Lay the bundle aside. Again and again, the same quiet movements continue across the field like a gentle dance that has been practiced for generations. Nobody rushes. Everyone knows that careful work protects the precious grain that will feed families through the coming year. Children help wherever they can. The older ones carry finished bundles to growing stacks near the edge of the field. Younger children gather loose stalks that have fallen behind, making sure almost nothing goes to waste. Even the smallest hands have an important role, and every family works together toward the same goal. As the morning sun climbs higher, the fields become warm, but a gentle breeze continues to drift across the countryside, making the sea of golden wheat ripple softly. From a distance, it almost looks like gentle waves moving across a quiet ocean. Every now and then, someone pauses for a short rest beneath the shade of a large oak tree. A basket is opened, revealing simple food prepared earlier that morning. Thick slices of fresh bread, pieces of cheese, crisp apples, and cool water from the village well provide enough energy before everyone quietly returns to work. There is laughter, friendly conversation, and comfortable silence shared among neighbors who have known one another for many years. Nearby, a pair of sturdy horses patiently waits beside a wooden wagon. As each stack of grain grows larger, the bundles are carefully loaded onto the wagon. The horses hardly seem bothered by the work. They have followed this same routine every harvest season for much of their lives, moving steadily from field to barn without complaint. The sound of nature surrounds the workers throughout the day. Swallows dart through the sky, catching insects above the fields. Grasshoppers leap through the tall grass with every passing step. Somewhere beyond the hedgerow, a skylark sings high above the countryside, its cheerful song floating gently across the warm afternoon air. By late afternoon, much of the field has been cleared. Where tall wheat once stood, neat rows of bundled grain now wait to be carried into the village barns. Looking across the landscape, you can easily see the reward for many months of patient effort. As the sun begins its slow descent, the wagons make their final journeys home. The barns gradually fill with fresh grain that will later be threshed, milled into flour, and baked into the bread that appears on every family table. The harvest is not simply another chore. It is the foundation of everyday life. A successful harvest means full cupboards, warm meals, and peace of mind during the long winter months ahead. Before leaving the field, the families pause for a quiet moment. They look across the land with quiet satisfaction, knowing that today's work has secured tomorrow's comfort. No grand celebration is needed. The simple sight of a well-filled barn is reward enough. As you slowly walk back toward the village, the evening sunlight bathes the harvested fields in soft shades of gold and amber. Thin streams of smoke rise from distant chimneys, promising another warm supper waiting at home. You realize that harvest time is more than gathering crops. It is the final chapter of a story that began with a handful of seeds many months ago. In the 19th century, every loaf of bread, every bowl of porridge, and every family meal begins here, in these peaceful fields, where ordinary people work patiently beneath the open sky. Their quiet dedication reminds you once again that the beauty of everyday life is often found not in remarkable events, but in simple moments shared together through the changing seasons. A winter evening beside the hearth. The harvest has long been gathered. The barns are full, and the bright colors of autumn have quietly faded into memory. As the seasons continue their gentle march forward, winter finally arrives in the village. Overnight, the familiar countryside has been transformed. A soft blanket of snow covers the rooftops, the stone walls, and the winding country roads. Every tree branch wears a delicate coat of white, and the fields that were once golden with wheat now rest peacefully beneath the winter sky. You wake to an extraordinary silence. Fresh snow has a wonderful way of quieting the world. The usual sound seems softer, as though nature itself is speaking in whispers. Looking through the small window, you see tiny snowflakes still drifting gently from the grey clouds above. They fall slowly, dancing through the cold air, before settling upon the earth without making a sound. Inside the cottage, however, the atmosphere is wonderfully warm. The fireplace has been burning since early morning, filling every corner of the room with gentle heat. Thick oak logs gathered months ago now crackle cheerfully as bright flames dance behind the iron grate. You remember the careful work of collecting and stacking that firewood during the autumn, and now its importance becomes wonderfully clear. The family spends much of the day indoors. Winter naturally slows the pace of life. Although the animals still need feeding and a few outdoor chores cannot be ignored, there is far less work to do in the frozen fields. Instead, many activities move inside the comfort of the home. A large iron kettle hangs above the fire, gently simmering throughout the afternoon. The comforting aroma of vegetable soup slowly fills the cottage, blending with the pleasant scent of fresh bread warming beside the hearth. Every now and then, someone lifts the heavy lid to stir the soup with a long wooden spoon before placing it carefully back over the pot. Near the window, where daylight is strongest, the grandmother continues her knitting. Her hands move with quiet confidence, creating another warm pair of woolen socks that will soon protect someone's feet from the winter cold. Beside her, the grandfather carefully repairs the wooden handle of a farming tool. Spring may still be many months away, but there is satisfaction in being prepared long before the work begins again. The children find simple ways to enjoy the snowy afternoon. After helping with a few household chores, they bundle themselves in thick coats, scarves, and knitted mittens before stepping outside for a short while. Their boots leave fresh footprints across the untouched snow as they quietly roll snowballs or gently pull one another on a small wooden sled. Their laughter drifts through the crisp air before they return indoors with rosy cheeks and cold hands eager to warm themselves beside the fire. As evening approaches, darkness arrives much earlier than it did during the summer months. By late afternoon, candles are already being lit throughout the cottage. Their soft golden glow joins the flickering firelight, creating a peaceful warmth that seems to embrace every corner of the room. After supper, the family gathers together once more around the fireplace. There is no need for grand entertainment. One child reads a few pages from a well-loved book while the others listen quietly. Later, the grandfather begins telling stories from his younger days. describing winters that were even colder than this one, and snowfall so deep that villagers could barely open their front doors. The children listen with wide eyes, unsure how much of the story has grown larger with time. Outside, the snowfall has finally stopped. The clouds slowly drift away, revealing a clear winter sky filled with brilliant stars. Moonlight reflects off the fresh snow, making the entire village glow with a soft silver light. Every cottage chimney sends a thin stream of smoke into the cold night air, while the quiet roads remain almost untouched until morning. Before going to bed, someone adds one final log to the fire. It burns slowly, ensuring that the cottage remains warm for a little while longer. The wooden shutters are closed tightly against the winter wind. Blankets are carefully spread across each bed, and the family offers quiet good nights before climbing beneath layers of warm quilts. As you settle comfortably beside the fading fire, you realize that winter in the 19th century is not merely a season of cold weather. It is a season of closeness. Families spend more time together, sharing stories, repairing cherished belongings, reading by candlelight, and appreciating the warmth they worked so hard to prepare months earlier. Outside, the world sleeps beneath its blanket of snow, while inside, the simple glow of the hearth reminds everyone that the greatest comfort is often found not in luxury, but in home, family, and the peaceful rhythm of another ordinary evening. The end of another ordinary year, and so our gentle journey through the ordinary life of the 19th century slowly comes to its end. Over the past many peaceful hours, you have wandered along quiet village roads, stepped inside warm cottages, watched children return from school, shared simple meals around wooden tables, visited the village bakery, the general store, the blacksmith's forge, and the little post office. You have listened to the rain upon the roof, walked through golden harvest fields, gathered firewood before winter, and rested beside a glowing fireplace, while snow quietly covered the countryside. None of these moments were extraordinary. No kings marched through the village. No great battles changed the course of history. No famous inventors arrived with remarkable machines. Instead, you witnessed something far quieter, the everyday lives of ordinary people whose names have long been forgotten, yet whose work, kindness, and simple routines quietly shape the world around them. Now, another year is drawing to a peaceful close. The winter nights have grown long, and the village once again settles beneath a blanket of silence. Smoke rises gently from every chimney as families remain indoors, sheltered from the cold by thick stone walls and carefully stacked firewood, gathered many months before. The familiar rhythm of life has slowed, but it has never truly stopped. Inside one cottage, a mother carefully folds freshly mended clothes before placing them neatly into a wooden chest. In another, a father quietly sharpens his farming tools, already thinking about the spring that will eventually return. Grandparents sit beside the hearth, their hands wrapped around warm mugs while they tell stories that children have heard many times before, yet never grow tired of listening to. Outside, the village roads are almost empty. Fresh snow softly covers yesterday's footprints, leaving the landscape peaceful and untouched. A horse rests comfortably inside the stable. Cows lie quietly upon fresh straw, and chickens sleep together high upon their wooden roosts. Even the trees seem perfectly still beneath the pale winter moon. You step outside for one final walk. The air is cold but wonderfully fresh. Every breath forms a small cloud before disappearing into the quiet night. Above you stretches a sky filled with countless stars, shining just as brightly as they did hundreds of years ago. Without electric lights dimming their beauty, the heavens seem endless. The Milky Way arches across the darkness like a river of silver, silently watching over the sleeping village below. As you slowly follow the familiar road one last time, every place you visited returns gently to your memory. The bakery where warm bread filled the air with its comforting aroma, the schoolhouse where children practiced their lessons with careful handwriting, the blacksmith's forge where glowing iron met the steady rhythm of the hammer, the village store where neighbors gathered to exchange quiet conversation, the peaceful church where families came together each Sunday morning, the fields where golden wheat swayed beneath the summer breeze, the forest where patient hands gathered firewood for the long winter ahead. Each place tells the same quiet story. Life here was rarely easy. Every loaf of bread required many hours of labor. Every bucket of water had to be carried by hand. Every shirt was washed without machines. Every room was warmed only by carefully gathered firewood. Yet despite the hard work, there was also a deep sense of purpose. The seasons guided every task. Spring brought planting. Summer brought growth. Autumn brought harvest. Winter brought rest. Then, almost without anyone noticing, the cycle quietly began once more. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson this little village has to offer. Happiness was not found in constant excitement or endless possessions. It was found in familiar routines, honest work, shared meals, peaceful evenings, and the comforting knowledge that tomorrow would arrive much like today. Life moved slowly enough for neighbors to know one another, for families to gather every evening, and for children to grow up surrounded by stories passed from one generation to the next. Standing quietly beneath the winter stars, you realize that although the 19th century is long behind us, many of its simplest pleasures still remain timeless. The warmth of a home, the comfort of family, the satisfaction of meaningful work, the beauty of changing seasons, and the peace found in slowing down are treasures that belong to every generation. Now the final candle inside the cottage grows dim, the fire settles into glowing embers, the village falls completely silent. Another ordinary day, another ordinary season, another ordinary year has gently come to an end. Thank you for spending this peaceful journey through the quiet rhythms of 19th century life. And as the soft winter wind whispers through the sleeping trees, may you close your eyes, drift peacefully into sleep, and dream of a slower, gentler world where every ordinary day was quietly enough. Good night.